The name of the group is Louisiana's Flagship Coalition, and the name is important. LSU is important to the whole state. This is a coalition that we hope to build upon. We right now have 25 concerned business leaders and civic leaders from around the state who want to see LSU's, our flagship institution, be the best it can be. And that's what has galvanized us, that's what's brought us together, and that's why we're here.
We've got some very impressive business and community leaders from all over our state. I know everybody's here for the same reason. We're all interested in moving our higher education system forward in this state. I want to make just a couple of very brief introductory comments, and then I really am more here to listen than anything. And I've got some senior folks from my administration. I was telling a couple of y'all, we do as a state face challenging times, but out of challenging times come opportunity. We know we're going to be presenting a budget next spring that's going to be balanced, that will not raise taxes, that will protect our critical priorities in higher education and health care, will allow us to continue to grow our economy even more quickly than the South and the country as we've done for the last 3 years. But what excites me about today's meeting is I think we've got a real opportunity about moving our universities forward and making them nationally competitive. What excites me today is we're here to talk about not just getting through a short-term challenge, but how can we change the way that we do business in this state, especially when it comes to higher education, so we really are competing with the best of the best. When you look at what other flagship institutions do across the country, we can learn from their best practices. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think that given the challenges we face, there may be more of a willingness in the Capitol and across this state to do things that really should have been done anyway years ago. And so what excites me about today is it's about moving our state forward. I think we all share the same goal of we know that the quality of life we leave to our children, the economic development opportunities in our state depend on a strong, vibrant higher education system. And that depends, that really is going to require us to make some changes and to make some tough decisions. But I think that the circumstances that are exactly right for us to make those tough decisions, my commitment to you is I look forward to hearing from your ideas, exchanging some ideas of our own, and then my goal, and I really do believe we can get there, is as a group for us to not only share goals, but share a detailed plan that we can then bring together to the legislature, bring to other stakeholders, bring to the state and say, here is a way for the state to move forward. Here's a way for our universities, our colleges to move forward, because it's not only about this generation of students, it's about those that come after us. Close my introductory remarks by saying, Lane and I and others and I were talking about, this is really about what we leave behind for our children. I mean, that's really what motivates all of us to be here. And look, I'll tell you this in concluding my introductory remarks. The reason I was born and raised right here in this great state was because my mom wanted to come to school here. I mean, she came here. I want you to think about this. My mom was pregnant with me. She turned LSU down. She was a physics student. They came back with such an enticing offer. They said, we'll give you a month off after you give birth to the baby. She said, that's such a good deal. We can't turn that down. Now, what they didn't negotiate, it shows you what great negotiators they were, they didn't negotiate health care coverage for me. And so they come over here, and insurance doesn't cover my birth. And so, yeah, she gets a month off, but my dad has to pay the doctor on an installment plan to pay for my birth. Fortunately, he didn't skip a payment, otherwise it might have repossessed me. But my life changed for the better because my parents had an opportunity to come to school here, and they never looked back. They spent their entire adult lives here. They've raised their family here, and I think there are a number of families that have a similar kind of experience where an institution like that has changed their lives. Not just LSU, but our other schools has literally changed their lives. So I want to thank everybody for coming here. I want to thank the media for coming here. We're going to ask y'all to please give us a chance to talk to each other, and again, you're welcome to wait. I want to thank you all for coming out. We had a very good meeting with the community, the business leaders assembled behind me. We talked today about opportunities to help move our universities forward. And as I said in the comments at the beginning of the meeting, obviously we're going to be presenting a budget that is balanced, that doesn't raise taxes, that protects our critical priorities in education and healthcare, that allows our economy to grow even more quickly than the southern and national averages, as it has been doing these last 3 years. One of the things we all know, we face significant challenges as a state. In these challenges are opportunities to help us to help our universities improve, maybe to even do some things that we should have been doing anyway. The reality is what excites me about today's meeting is we talked about policies that would give our universities the opportunities to actually compete with universities on a national basis, on a national level. We talk a lot about a flagship agenda here in Louisiana. The reality is we know if we study the best practices from other states, and today we talked in detail about what Texas is doing, what Florida is doing, what Michigan is doing, what North Carolina is doing, what other states with successful public universities have done, and we're looking at some of the best practices in those states to see how we can help our universities compete and move forward. Very specifically, we talked today about some ideas about giving universities more flexibility, more authority in return for better performance. We know that would generate significant cost savings. For example, giving them flexibility on issues like HR, on hiring practices, on purchasing policies, on travel policies, on IT investments, even on facilities. We know on those and other areas we give them more flexibilities, and also that includes, by the way, maybe some flexibilities on fees and revenues as well. If we give them more flexibility, we can also demand better performance. And not only can we demand better performance, but we will see significant savings. We talked specifically today about LSU A&M. We talked very specifically today about making sure that LSU is competitive nationally as a flagship university, competitive not just with institutions in the region and in the state, but with other flagship institutions across the country. But we also talked about giving the similar types of flexibilities to institutions that are able to meet aggressive performance targets. Now, this may be done in a tiered basis. It may be that schools that are able to meet certain performance indicators are given certain flexibilities, and as they continue to improve their performance, they get more flexibility. So we talked a lot about today about how do we help LSU in particular to compete with other schools across the country, but also about how this flexibility could be offered to other schools on a tiered basis, but dependent on them meeting aggressive performance criteria. It's going to be very important. For example, I'll give you a specific example. If schools are going to be given flexibility on purchasing, they've got to have very strong internal controls to make sure that dollars continue to be well spent. We identified literally very, very significant savings for the campus, for LSU, and we know those savings would be significant on other campuses as well if they were given these flexibilities. I want to reiterate something I said in anticipation of this meeting. I look forward to continue to work with this group. The next step for us will be to continue to work on specific details about how do we give these flexibilities, what does this look like, what are the parameters, how do we actually develop a bill. Out of this meeting, I absolutely expect not only are we going to be able to support the Flagship Coalition's overall policy goals, but their specific policies as well. I absolutely expect that we'll come out with a package of proposals that we'll be presenting to other stakeholders, to legislators, and to others for them to consider in next year as we go into the regular session. Now, there's a lot of work that still has to be done. We didn't write a bill today. We had a great conversation about specific policies. The next step for us is to continue to work together, especially at a staff level, to put more details around those policies and to make sure that as we develop the specific policies, we continue to meet with other stakeholders as well. We agreed to go out and meet with other groups and other individuals and other representatives that have ideas or an interest in helping our universities compete and move forward. It was a great meeting. One of the things I want to stress, this is about helping. This is certainly going to help our universities with some of their short-term challenges, but this is not a silver bullet just for the short-term challenges. This is really about positioning our universities for where they need to be longer term. This is not just about the next fiscal year or the next several months. This is about giving our universities the flexibility, the support they need to be competitive over the longer term. And that's critical for our economic development in this state as well as our quality of life in this state. So a very exciting meeting. I want to thank the business leaders and the community leaders you see behind me. They've come from various parts of the state. They come with their own individual backgrounds, but what unites them is their desire to work together to improve higher education in our state. And again, I'm confident as we work together to add more details to these policies, you'll see an agreement from the administration with the group not only on policy goals but also specific legislative proposals as well. That could include statutory changes, policy, administration changes, could even include constitutional changes as well. It will involve multiple instruments. We're not talking about just one bill. We're looking at this as GRAD Act 2.0. This is the next step. I think the GRAD Act was a successful first step to give universities more flexibility in return for better accountability, better results. We're looking at this as the next step forward to build on what we did last year.
Very productive meeting, and more importantly, a real willingness to embrace our ideas. Louisiana deserves a flagship university every bit as strong and competitive as flagship universities in other states, and the governor really embraced our ideas to make LSU more efficient, more entrepreneurial, to help LSU manage the cost side of its business more effectively, and really do those things that other great universities are allowed to do, other great state universities are allowed to do, to maintain their status and maintain their greatness even in light of very difficult financial times. If you look at how the University of Florida and the University of Michigan and the University of Virginia and those great institutions have fared in tough economic times, quite frankly, they have been able to thrive because the bureaucratic shackles have been taken off of them, and they can run their institutions in a more professional and cost-effective way. And so that's what we were about today. Again, the governor and his staff have been extremely receptive to our ideas and our agenda, and for that, Louisiana's Flagship Coalition thanks them a great deal. At the end of the day, as the governor said, we focused a lot on the cost side more. Those are not automatically easy things to get done when you're talking about civil service rules and pension obligations and procurement codes. So we talked about those in great detail and talked about the actual savings that could be accomplished. At the end of the day, we don't know exactly how big the hole is going to be after we do that, after we attack the cost side first. And so what the governor's staff has is a matrix that starts off at a very little modest fee and says if the hole is this big, then that's what it would raise at our flagship campus. And of course, what they're interested in doing is solving bigger problems with other institutions. And we welcome that discussion as well. But at the end of the day, this really is about how a Tier 1 research institution can be managed more like its peer group. So we talked about that, and I got to hand it to the governor. In very short order, he welcomed our ideas. If you look at other flagship institutions in other states, they've done better in tough financial times because they have more autonomy, more independence, more flexibility to run their business, to manage their costs, to manage the revenue side of their business. And it has served them well. And so we're talking about institutions that are peer and aspirational institutions for LSU, the University of Michigan, the University of North Carolina, University of Florida, and so on, University of Texas. There are many examples of flagship institutions that have gone down this road before us and found it to be a good one.
What would you envision LSU looking like if these plans do come together?
The most important thing is that over time, less and less reliance on state taxpayers. Right now, LSU gets about 50% of its operating budget from the state. If this works and we look more like our peer institutions, then the reliance on the state general fund can go down to even 25%. And at that point, you can see that less reliance on the taxpayers, less reliance on the vagaries of the state fisc. That can only be a good thing for LSU and our flagship institution.
Your reaction to today's meeting?
We're very happy. I mean, you know, the governor is very supportive, and not just in a way of coming out and appearing before you guys. He wants to help in a very real way, help us do the research, help us pass a package in the legislature, and also take components of this package that may work for other institutions and help sell it to them. So, great meeting. Thank you, Governor.